God, pour out your Spirit on all of us gathered here. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be pleasing to you. All this we ask in your name. Amen. When I was little, I wanted to be an astronaut. I thought that the coolest thing would be to go to outer space. So my second grade teacher, who I prayed and prayed and prayed all through first grade that I would get put in her class, was the space teacher. I'm not really sure what I learned in second grade other than things about space and how to write cursive. I was a terrible speller, and she was also a terrible speller, so we just got to wave that little grade away. But I got to spend most of second grade imagining what it would be like to be an astronaut. So I remember the very first time that we had a conversation with somebody in space. She had set up this teleconference. This is back in like 2001, 2002. Teleconferences in a classroom are brand new. And she had us gather around the computer. There was a small little computer on a desk. And we talked to somebody who was in space. They were in the space station, and they had decided that they had some time in their schedule to talk to a group of 7-year-olds. We got to ask them questions, and we thought about all the ways in which we could one day be astronauts too. This was back when the Mars rovers were being built, and so every time there was a new space launch, we would get to watch it in our classroom. And it reminded me, talking with my grandparents, about when we first sent a person up into space. So how many of you remember that day? Yeah, not me, but do you guys remember where you were? Yeah? That was a really momentous day because there was something about the dream and the vision of being somewhere other than Earth that seemed otherworldly, right? Something, we would get to see more of what God created. So now that I'm an adult and I'm in divinity school, I have kind of given up a little bit of that dream of being an astronaut. But recently, they have set up a free-for-all. You can type in your name and ask to be part of the new Mars colony. And they're going to select a group of people if we ever get to Mars. So I think Reverend Skylar Ferguson, Chaplain to Mars, is a good job title to strive for now. Joel is talking to the people of God in a time when they have just come, or they're trying to figure out where God is. They've had locusts, they've had drought, they've had times where they haven't seen God, and God has also sent his army among the people. And they're asking, God, where are you? Where can we see you? God promises them here that they're going to have abundant rains, not just a little bit of rain, as much as they need, but more than enough. God also says he's going to pour out his Spirit, not just on one person, not just on a small group of people, but on everyone, whether we ask for it or not. So if you guys remember, we've been working our way through the prophets, and some of the prophets, we hear that they didn't ask to be prophets, right? God poured out this gift on them, and now they have to use it. And they're going to have to say some things that the Israelites and the Judeans are not going to want to hear, right? So God says that there will be prophets. God says that our elderly will dream dreams. And he says that our young people will have visions. So as a church, are we listening to the people that God is sending as prophets? Joel says that the people of God have been waiting to hear from him. And when we don't listen to God, when we don't listen to the words that we have and the people that are around, or the direct communication we have with God, God sends prophets. As I said before, prophets don't always have the most eloquent messages. They don't always have the words that we want to hear, but they're the words that we have to hear. So I want you guys to think about, in your lifetime, or maybe today, who have been prophets? What have they been saying? And have we been open to hearing them? Jesus was a prophet, right? 2,000 years from when Jesus was alive, we read the stories of the New Testament, And we take them kind of for granted, right? We're like, oh, yeah, if we were around when Jesus was alive, we would be following him and we would be doing the things that he's doing. But I think if we sit with the New Testament and the text in the New Testament long enough, we'd be like my friend who a couple weeks ago said, man, if I had been hanging around Jesus, I don't know if I would have liked him so much. He was turning over tables. He was telling people that what you're doing is not really what God is calling you to do. Isn't that hard to hear? When God shows up in our lives, sometimes we get uncomfortable. We are like, this is my safe space. I've built this life. These are the things that I know to be true. And so when God sends prophets to us that maybe just tweak or fully turn around what we've been doing, we're not so quick to listen. Living into the vision of the future can be really hard. When we're listening to the ways in which God is calling us to be a neighbor, when God is calling us to be part of this community, to be part of North Carolina, to be part of the world, I want to think about who are the prophets today. God doesn't say that middle-aged people are going to be the prophets. God doesn't say that the elderly are going to be the prophets. He says that the young people will be. People that were sitting right up here. God knows that as we grow older, we put filters in front of our mouths. And what God tells us and we know to be deeply true, we don't feel like we can say, right? Sometimes there's things that are so scary and so paramount to what we need to be doing today as Christians that we feel scared to say them out loud, right? I don't know if you guys watch the news, but there have been climate strikes taken up, and the people that are doing them are young people. They're scared about the future. Their vision of the future right now is one that is wrought with fear and anxiety because they're not sure if we're going to have land to live. More people live on the earth today than have ever lived in all of human history. That is so many people, and all of them are God's people. I want to remind you that in this visioning of space, in this visioning of the future, we don't have a planet B. Mars is not our planet B. As cool as it would be to go out there, God breathed into the soil of the earth. Humanity is deeply and intricately connected to the soil of this earth. We were reminded on Ash Wednesday every year that from dust we came and to dust we shall return. This is the planet that we have been asked to be caretakers of. When the soil dries up, so will we. We are so connected. When the prophets among us show us what the future holds if we don't change our ways, when the children among us reveal that the monsters aren't under our bed or in our closets or even in the mirrors, but are the people that we've trusted with our future, or even the future itself, when the visions and the dreams get too hard to bear and we no longer want to listen, are we still going to proclaim the Lord's faithfulness? Joel reminds us that we are supposed to be glad and rejoice in the Lord. Are we still going to lift up the voices of the prophets?